Welcome friends. Today is the 16th lecture on GPS surveying. In this class we will be talking on procedure of GPS surveying. Now already so far you have seen many activities on GPS surveying. Now we can say that land surveying using GPS provides us very precise position quickly as well as economically using very little resources. The methods used for GPS surveying are quite simple in comparison to the existing conventional methods. Moreover, the different operations that we carry on for GPS surveying depends on many factors like the project area, project objective, accuracy we are looking for, instruments we are using, many other factors. However, to achieve the GPS surveying output as per standard specification, we may attain it quite easily and in a very economically as well as. But in order to achieve this desired output, we need to go for a thorough planning of the GPS surveying as well as we need to execute GPS surveying operations efficiently. In order to carry out GPS surveying properly, we need to conduct the GPS surveying following certain procedure or certain definite steps. Now in this class we are going to discuss on those steps which is to be required to be taken during GPS surveying. Because this procedure of our GPS surveying is a elaborate thing, we need to elaborate the procedure for GPS surveying. Today we will be talking only on certain part. Anyway, so the salient steps in GPS surveying consist of: first you should go for planning, then you need to carry out preparation for it, followed by field observations. After the field observation we have to process the data and finally we have to prepare the report. Now these steps though looks independent, but in many of the GPS surveying work it will be, you will find that these steps are not that apparent. However, to carry out the GPS surveying nicely or properly, we need to understand each and every steps clearly. Now today's class I will be talking on the planning part, and in next classes we will go for other part of this procedure for GPS surveying. Now the GPS surveying planning starts with reconnaissance, followed by we have to go for selection of station points. So planning of GPS surveying consists of reconnaissance, then we have to go for selection of station points. Once the station points get selected, we should go for monument construction, then we should go for selection of receivers. Once the, of course before receiver we should look for selection of positioning methods, then we should go for selection of receiver, then we should design the survey, and finally we have to validate our planning. So, these are the seven steps which we need to follow during planning operation. Now, what is reconnaissance? Why we go for reconnaissance? During reconnaissance we do carry out extensive inspection and examination of the project area to find out the suitability of the land of the area as well as many other points like selection of station points, then satisfied for surveying or not, all those things we have to do in during reconnaissance. Now, reconnaissance carried out under two steps. One is in the office, that is called office reconnaissance, and after the reconnaissance has been done in office, we have to carry out the reconnaissance in field, that is called field reconnaissance. Now, in case of office reconnaissance, actually we do it inside the office. So, what we do, we take the existing topographic maps, images, aerial photographs as large scale as possible, and in that existing maps, images, we do thoroughly see about the project area and whether the area is viable for GPS surveying or not. From the topographic map we try to understand, and we try to find out the possible locations where station may be established, and also we look for the possible routes through which we have to go to the site, and then possible infrastructure, whatever infrastructure we will need to have, like where to stay, how to communicate to the project area. So, many other requirements will be required during surveying, and those requirements whether fulfilled and how it can be fulfilled, those preliminary idea we should gather using office reconnaissance. Now, that means the output of office reconnaissance will be the approximate location of the station points which should be marked on the map, and the possible route should be marked, and preliminary idea of the map should be noted down. Next, with this background, we should proceed to the field actual survey area. There we should carry with us one navigational GPS receiver, so that we can also keep track of our activity through GPS. Now, during field reconnaissance, the most important thing is to identify the actual location of the probable stations which has been marked in the base map, and then we should go to the field and find out in the field whether those stations are really suitable for GPS surveying or not. Now, if it is suitable means whether the location is free from electrical interference or away from or devoid of any reflecting surfaces, and the station should be clear from physical obstruction at an angle of cutoff angle of 15 degree preferably. So, these are the primary things. Now, if it is there any type of problem, then we should find out what are the possible problems, and we should try to take out the solution and conduct the solution. Means implement the solution so that the stations are good for or appropriate for our GPS surveying. Then another important point during the field reconnaissance is to check the stability of the stations, whether the location is stable or not. For long time GPS surveying, or we need to have permanent stable location. Also during field reconnaissance we also acquire some field data which we will be using in future for our other planning purpose. Once this field reconnaissance is over, so now we have more or less decided locations where station will be installed or station will be considered, and our route to the stations or project area, and we should also check if there is any kinematic survey, whether that route of the kinematic survey is free from physical obstruction, or that means free from sky view, or whether sky view is clear or not. During selection of station points, those locations which has been confirmed after field reconnaissance has to be properly marked on the ground, and if we are in need to carry out surveying for a long time, or we will be need to carry out surveying reoccupation of the stations, then we need to go for construction of monuments. So reoccupation requirement will be required, construction of monuments, otherwise marking of stations in the field for will be sufficient. And if the monument is to be constructed, then it should follow some standard specification. So that is also important, that the monument should have some standard specification. So once the stations are available, now we should go for selection of positioning methods. Actually the methods that has to be followed in during GPS surveying depends upon the nature of the project and the accuracy requirement, like, and also what are the purpose, like if we want to establish control point, and depending upon the order of control point, for control point we should go for static surveying, relative static, if we have the control point already available, but if control point is not available, then we should go for autonomous static control point establishment, and in that case we have to go for longer observation duration. Or if we want to establish the baseline, depending upon the length, if it is very high length, then we should go for static relative positioning, and the length baseline is small, then we can go for rapid static method. Like during reconnaissance we should go for autonomous navigation positioning. For if we are to plot a objects, defined point objects, then we should go for stop and go method of surveying, and if we go on to have the linear object, then we should go for kinematic positioning. So depending upon what type of objects or what type of surveying we need to do, we should go for defined methods. Now after deciding the methods, we need to know what is the accuracy we need to have and what type of measurement observables we will be making use for achieving our objective. So depending upon that and many other factors, actually we should go for selection of receiver. Now the selection of receiver is a very complex process if we want to end up with a economic solution, as well as if we want to maintain the accuracy, or if we want to achieve the objective of the work within standard specification. Now to select the appropriate receiver actually depends upon three factors. One is the technical reason, next is that your field requirement and software. These are the 3 points which we have to emphasize during selection of receiver. Now technical reasons, as I told you, what are the different observables we will make use for our achieving the objective, what is the degree of accuracy we need to have, what type of signals we will like to acquire, whether it is from GPS only or also GNSS, how many channels of receiver we will make use. So all those technical aspects will be required to be taken into account for identifying appropriate receiver. Now field condition, like what should be the physical characteristics of the receiver, how much weight, what is the volume, like that, what is the power capacity, how many hours the receiver can work without having any external power, because in the field we may be working for 6 hours or 8 hours, the battery backup of the receiver may not be having such, that means the receiver should have the battery backup of that. So like that many field conditions we have to consider, like also the operating temperature, what is the temperature in which the receiver can work, and what is the field condition of temperature, humidity and all those things. So these points are required to be considered in selecting the receiver, and finally the software, that means each receiver will be compatible to some particular software in general. So that is important while selecting the receiver. So but finally the receiver should be able to collect the type of measurements which we are looking for from particular GPS surveying, and the appropriateness of the type of receiver has to be validated through validation. So that is important. And one more thing, that if we generally we go for relative positioning, and so it is important to know that for relative positioning it is always advisable to go for receiver of similar type in base as well as reference. Reference and rover receiver preferably be identical type. So that will minimize many of the problems that we encountered during GPS surveying. So that can be minimized by taking this. The appropriateness of the receiver has to be validated during validation process. Next, survey design. Actually before we go for actual validation purpose, also we need to design our survey work. Now in case of GPS surveying, the survey design consists of 2 parts. One is that to develop the network of stations, how these networks are how the different stations has to be placed in the project area, and that is called network, and the observation design. That means how the receivers has to be placed in different station points during observation. If we have the number of receiver as the number of stations, then there is no problem in observation design. Now network. What is network? It is the particular way how the station will be present or will be selected in the project area. There should be sufficient number of station to achieve the objective of the project. So, the number of station that is to be selected within a project area will depend upon what is the extent of the area and what is the nature of the terrain in which project will be carried out, as well as your positioning methods, and finally the accuracy or the specification that the surveying has to achieve. So, with this background we should provide a framework of stations in the area, so that it provides the reference, it provides the proper reference in carrying out the surveying work. So, that means it should be well spread, so that each area have the surveying from more or less equal distance of the stations. Now, the another point which is important, not only number, but the these stations should be tied to national surveying network, so that we can have the local network system, and also it should be designed in such a way that in future we may also extend our network. So, these are the primary points which we should keep in mind during the network design. So, network design. Now, there are two standard way how network gets designed at present. One is the radial method, another is the closed network method. Now, in case of radial method means where the one of the receiver will be placed at the center, and if we have more than because we need more than one receiver in relative positioning, and if we have, suppose I have, this is the configuration of stations. Now, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if I have 8 receiver, what I will do simply we will place one here and all the 7 1 1 1 all these things. But if we have less than 8, so then the question comes how to place the receiver. So, one of the method is the radial method. Suppose we have 2 receiver, then what we will do, only one will be always placed here and another will be kept 1, 2, 3, 4, like first I will place here, first I will place here, then I will take the reading between these two. After some time I will shift it to this and then I will take reading between these two, this is the baseline. Then after some time we will take. So, the configuration is like that 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4 means this is the baseline. So, we will be taking reading between these two, then first, then these two second, then these two third, this is the fourth, like that. So, this is called radial method of network or radial observation. In this type of observation, the relative positioning between these and these or these and these will be very good, but there will not be any relative positioning between adjoining stations. So, and the position of these stations cannot be verified or restricted by geometric consideration. So, the accuracy we achieved between mutual will be less. So, it is for small area surveying this is a good method, but for when we want to go for very accurate method of surveying, then instead of this radial method we go for closed network. In that case what we will do? We will do some networking like this. So, like this, and generally will be need more than 2, at least 3 or 4 receiver. So, in closed network generally we go for baselines which will be forming some closed network of triangles, and the observations will be taken in such a way that at least 2 adjoining stations should be observed simultaneously. So, there will be some overlapping of observations between adjoining stations, and so this type of means this red one closed network type of network design provides us very accurate positioning of the stations, because we can also go for geometrical adjustment during our processing. Now, this observation design, that means what is the way we should go for observation sessions, that is called observation design. So, the way we go for observation sessions is constitutes the observation design. In case of observation design, first thing is that there should be overlapping of observation duration between or among adjoining stations. So, we should see this and this together, and again this. This is the most important thing, and the another thing which is important during observation design is that there should be some redundant observations, so that this redundancy in observation will actually help us to check many errors, as well as it provides it improves the precision as well as reliability of our result. So, redundancy in observation is also very important. Each of these station should be connected with a non-trivial baseline, and all control points should be connected with 2 to 3 independent baseline, and for in each closed network at least there should be 2 control points. So, these are the minimum requirements which we should go for during observation design. So, and finally we should go for validation of the planning work. The validation of a planning GPS surveying, in GPS surveying consists of, you should first validate the method, then validate the equipment, and we should validate the processing strategy. So, these are the 3 means which position the measuring methods which we have considered as during our planning should be validated. So, in order to do these things we should take a sample data, as I told you during our field reconnaissance we have collected the sample data, and that sample data has to be processed, and after processing the sample data we should see whether the result or output is meeting our standard specification or not. If it is meeting, then okay, that means our equipment used or the method we have considered or the processing strategy all are okay. If not, then we have to identify the reason why this output is not meeting our standard specification, and accordingly we need to change the method or equipment or processing strategy or all or some of this. Moreover, during validation also we need to see what are the problems we encountered, and we have to find out possible solutions, and they has to be implemented during actual surveying. So, with this, that means finally we have to go for processing of sample data, and we have to see the output, whether the output is meeting the standard specification or not. That means if it is not, then we have to change our planning process, and we have to redo the thing iterative, so that our method, equipment and processing strategy lead to final output which is of standard specification. With this, planning stage will be over, then we should go for preparation stage, which we will be discussing in the next class. So, let me summarize today's class, that in order to carry out GPS surveying, we need to go for proper planning and efficient execution of some standard steps. In order to achieve the objective of any GPS surveying and to meet the standard specification, we need to follow a standard procedure which consists of planning, preparation, field observation, processing and report preparation generation. Of this, planning stage has to be done thoroughly, and it consists of reconnaissance followed by selection of station and its construction, then selection of receiver as well as positioning methods, then survey design. Finally, our planning, whether the planning is correct or not, that is to be validated through processing a sample data, and the output of the sample data should meet the standard specification of the objective of the surveying work. Now, in case of receiver selection, preferably we should look for receiver having identical specification, and in case of closed network, in case of networking, we should prefer to go for closed network for accurate surveying, and finally we need to complete our validation through satisfying our output meeting the standard specification, which is to follow the particular method, equipment and processing strategy. With this, I want to conclude you. In the next class, I will be talking on preparation as well as field observation. Thank you.